Good evening and welcome back. Today is day two, I would say day two of our AfriCanadian Resource Center program. Yesterday we talked about the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center and the work we're doing through the resource we received through the Red Cross and the Canadian government. Tonight we're going to bring you the first of 55 communities that we hope to visit over the course of the next 3 months. And that community is my own, the Rwandan community here in Toronto. We are going to introduce you to young people who are working within the community, young people who are students, young people who are looking to do incredible work in their future, young people who are focused on whether it's education or just doing art within the community. You're going to meet a few of them and you're going to see how passionate they are about this work we do in the community. One of the things that we set out to do with this project was to visit as many communities and as many individuals in the community as we can, and to be able to actually have a conversation with them, learn more about who they are as individuals, but more importantly, learn more about what they want to do, what they're doing, and what makes them do these things that they do. What do they believe? What is it that makes them want to do this day in and day out? Most of which is mostly voluntary or just something where we are giving ourselves, we're providing its sacrifice in order to get something done that building on what generations before us have done. So without further ado, right now I'm going to introduce you to one of those young people within the Rwandan community here in Toronto, and his name is Enoch. Let's hear from him.
Yes, my name is Enoch Tumwine, and I am I head an organization called African Rebirth. So it's to champion Pan-Africanism, diplomacy, and leadership. But besides that, I'm a student at University of Toronto. I'm in my final year. In my opinion, African communities a big
connection, to build with one another, to have that interest on day in and day out. Because what happens for many of our young people, and you're going to hear it from some of the discussions we had with other young people that are coming up, is that sometimes we're either too connected to our roots that we don't actually adapt to the new life in Canada, or we adapt so much to the life in Canada that we forget about the roots, we forget about who we are. So that dilemma that we're looking at is what we're trying to also explore as an organization. How can we look within the African communities and say, take some of the lessons from our ancestors, but also adapt new skills, adapt new ways of looking at the future. How can we work together? How can we collaborate like many other communities do? But even how can we do it better than they do it? These are the things that we're looking to do through looking through different communities, looking for the studies, looking for the ideas, looking for the research and other means of doing, of looking at the future than what we have done. Obviously, some of what we've done in the past have worked, but many of what we've done did not work because obviously you can see where we are as a community. So we're trying to add to that. We're trying to help assist, to help move our community forward. And to do that, my next guest is, if you meet her, and I say my guest, but this is our next interview that we did with these young people within the Rwandan community. Many of our Rwandan people know who she is. She needs no further introduction other than just say her name. Rita, let's hear from her.
My name is Ngarambe Rita Lawrence. I am a humanitarian activist. So I mainly focus on humanitarian work. So United for Humanity is an organization where we focus on providing platforms for young people, mainly artists. We believe they have the power to change the world, not only by facts or whatever the world considers as the real things. We believe that if we touch people by hearts, then we can make anything happen. So therefore, we provide platforms to join people, and we highlight on the things that are affecting people currently, whether it's a global change, whether it's climate change, whether it's political change or society. We raise awareness about it. And if it's funds that are needed to be founded or to be raised, then we reach the people for them, and we do that. I think my vision will be just mainly looking at the history. I believe as Rwanda, not just Africa, but Rwanda, we have a rich history. That we've seen the worst of humanity, we've seen humanity rise above it all. We've seen us killing each other one day. And now we are 20 years later, we live and we sit together, we eat together. And I want the world to see it. We are fighting over power, we're fighting over money, over control. And all these things can perish in one day. But if they can see that and let other countries who haven't experienced this learn from us, why do you have to go through the things, the pain we have endured for you to realize and get to where we are? So I want the rest of the world to look past the differences of religion. We've built so many walls among each other, but if we can rise above it all, which is why I focus on United for Humanity. What is one thing, apart from your skin color, apart from your love choice, apart from the God you worship, what is the one thing that we share in common? It's our humanity. Yes, I have lived in Rwanda. Not only am I Miss Face of Humanity Rwanda, I am Queen of Emancipation Africa, which is emancipation, the whole Africa as a continent. And that's like a celebration of when slavery was abolished in Canada. And I would say, looking at where it will be in the next 50 years, that depends on us. It depends on the choices we make today. If we decide that 457 years past, we've been in slavery, in modern slavery, and we've evolved around that, can we make a change and look at the turn of the history this time around? Can we realize the power within us? We Africans, we look for solutions on outside. We borrow money from the United Nations, we borrow money from USA, we borrow money from Chinese companies, we do all that. But what if we realize what we have within? We have the land, we have the brains, we have the money, we have everything. So it's up to us, what we decide today will define our future and what will come next.
Thank you, Rita. Incredible. As I said before, listening to Rita, listening how she expresses herself and knowing how young she is and looking at the work that she's done in the community and continues to do, you know that the future is greater than our past. You know, for me, I always look at how our people carry themselves in the community, how our people carry themselves around each other, how they approach life, how they approach the work in the community. And when I met Rita, I knew. And you see so many young people like her in our community. Now, she is talented, she has a lot of skills, but more than that, she has the know-how, she understands what is required for the community. To me, that moves me, it helps me to see that at least we have hope for not just our community as a Rwandan community, but as a whole. Because for her, when you listen and you hear her work and looking at humanity as opposed to just like one individual community, looking at one specific group, but looking at everybody, bringing everybody together, you know. I feel like for us as an organization, even though we have decided to focus on AfriCanadian, the reason why we did that, the reason why we wanted to talk about the AfriCanadian community is because we wanted to make sure that if we are going to play in this game that is life, community, whatever, that at least we have the same ability, that we have the same strength. So to help bring those resources together, to help assist these other communities to have the same capacity as others. So when we compete, we're on the same level. That way we can achieve that goal that Rita talks about, of united, of having a more harmonious world. You know. So I feel like we all have this role to play, whether it's the work that Rita is doing or the work that Enoch is doing, whom we hope to have on the line, by the way. All of that, something that we cannot do alone, that we have to work together, that we have to have this togetherness, that we have to come together and push towards the future together. Without going too far with this, in terms of what we are having in store for you, my next guest is Axel, who is also a member of the Rwandan community, and he's also a leader within the CARY Toronto community. That is the Canadian Association, for Youth, for Young Rwandans. And he's also going to talk about what he does and what the organization focuses on. Enoch, take it away.
My name is Axel Taganda. I'm a member of CARY Toronto, CARY being Canadian Association of Rwandan Youth in Toronto. In the greater Toronto area, essentially, it should be GTHA, with Hamilton included. So we are representative of the Rwandan youth within the GTA, and we're trying to, create a community for the youth and find a place for them to come and grow. One of the main challenges we have within CARY itself is to connect the youth within Toronto, Toronto being very vast as well. So we have the youth all over the place. So our main challenge was to literally keep each other in touch and get updates from other young people, what they're going through, the students, and how they were coping with the COVID. And most of them, obviously, the government back home was able to find planes to send them back. The students, especially them. But for the rest of us, it was literally just to keep in touch and making sure everybody is doing okay, healthy, and moving forward. Yeah. So one of our main mission with CARY is to inform, support, and connect the Rwandan youth, the new members, newcomers to Canada, to help them find their way in Toronto, and so they can have a very easy way growing in Toronto, and so they can feel at home, essentially, so they can be able to achieve whatever they feel like they can achieve, and they know they have a community they can tap into for any help they need. So our main goal for the next coming year and many other years is to create these many programs where many people with different interests, they can come in and they actually find themselves in whatever they feel like doing.
Thank you, Axel. Apologies, I mentioned I was ENAC, it's Axel. And as you can tell from the work that ENAC said that they're doing within the area of Toronto, and for people who don't know about Toronto, by the way, this is the biggest, I think, 4th biggest city in North America. Let me just highlight that. The 4th biggest city in North America. That is including Mexico, US, and Canada. We are the 4th biggest city in North America. I don't know how many times I repeated that. That is to say that it's so difficult to bring people together, especially during this time of COVID, during this time of economic challenges, but even during the normal times. Toronto is really hard to bring people together. So what CARY Toronto is doing, and what other organizations that like the Rwandan Canadian abroad, the RCA are doing, is incredible. It's immense, because to be able to find people to meet for an activity, to meet for a program or a workshop, is very challenging here in Toronto, because life is difficult, rent prices are so high. Everybody's busy trying to make their life go. So to be able to have these kinds of organizations like the one CARY is a part of, Axel is a part of, it's the leadership of, is very important for these communities. And you're also going to hear from my next guest after we go for a break, who is going to also express the same details about the community here in Toronto and overall, because I'm probably going to go into the Rwandan community within Canada, because he understands this. He has been in the community for a long time. He has been the leader. That is Mr. Imanzi Kaitare. We'll come to him in a few minutes, but first let's go for a break. Today I'm with the Rwandan group. We've been shooting this sort of a combination of different communities, but right now as our second podcast, mini podcast that we are combining together over the course of 1 week, joined by members of the Rwandan community, specifically Rwandan youth leaders and members. And I just wanted to have a quick conversation about the community work, what they're involved in, and also maybe we think and talk a little bit more about what we're looking forward to in the Rwandan community, as in Rwandan Toronto Canadian community.
Personally, I'm not so sure the intervention the government has made as to the Rwandan community here in Toronto, but I think I've connected with you and many leaders in the community. I think you've tried to reach out to many opportunities to help Rwandan community here. And first, we're in a WhatsApp group, I could see a lot of information flowing about how the government is trying to help, and how the precautions people should take in, like the student loan the government issued up. So I saw a lot of information about that, because information is so important, because that's where you get to know things, do's and don'ts. So in the COVID response, I would say the Rwandan, even if I was not the heart of the response team in the Rwandan community, but I would say the leaders did their job to inform people.
And one
mandate we've been trying to get at is actually to connect and reach out to many Rwandan youth in the area. And like I said, Toronto and the GTA, it's pretty big, it's pretty broad. You have people all over the place, and most of the time you see them being isolated and in their own corner without really, not reaching out to other young people and trying to find out what the other people are doing really. So our main focus was to literally connect the young people, starting there first, as connecting to them and understanding what is they're going through, what is they're doing. And then our other focus is usually we try to inform them and support them if needed. But usually connecting and informing each other, understanding what's happening in the area, and as we keep growing, and we obviously want to, as we keep growing, we obviously want to get involved more in the local government in the area and trying to see what's going on, how can we get involved, and we can make the GTA our home as well.
I'm in support of what have been said. I think that's really important, and also the fact that we are in comfort zones. Yes, the funds are out there, but we feel like we're comfortable. If I can afford food, if I can afford rent, what do I need funds for? So not only is it the job for the leaders to inspire or motivate their community members to pursue that. There is this saying, it says, if you're not at the table, you are on the table. So we either gotta choose where we want to be in this situation. Whether if it's our young people who move to these countries, there is jobs, there is that, but we also have that back mindset of, I will go home, what do I need to put foundation here for? But you don't realize we're creating future, like generational wealth. We have to create value for the people to notice what we have within us. If it's being a CEO of an organization, then you need to realize that if another organization can hire me, what do I have to offer that they need from me? Can I use that towards building my own community? So it's up to us to sit within and come back and settle to the roots, like how Enoch has been saying, and excel that. What as Rwandan youth, what we have to give, and can we give it to ourselves before we give it outside?
This concludes our second of many more mini podcasts to come, and we thank you for joining us. This is again one of part of the project, the AfriCanadian Resource Center project, where we are going to put resources for African Canadians, continental African Canadian community members to access, to learn from, and also to expand and share the stories, as you were saying, Enoch. So please, thank you for joining us. We'll have more stories like this on an ongoing basis, and we look forward to it. Make sure to keep on joining us every week. Thank you. Incredible. Well, not me, but the group that I'm talking to here in the podcast group that you just followed. Really, one of my most moving experiences, being able to hear from people that are doing the work that we know we need in the community. Like, how can we sit and actually not just talk about what we're doing, but actually explain ways to do it better? Because all of these young people that you just heard from, they're involved in the community every day, right? Rita has shows, she's talking, she's helping communities and raising money for poor individuals within the city, having different shows all the time. Of course, Axel, I told you, is in the leadership of CARY. Enoch, who is new but yet found a way to be in the leadership role because he realizes that this is their time. This is if you listen to what Emmanuel said to us yesterday. Emmanuel Meles is to me an incredible mentor. Said the future, what we are trying to do, especially here within the AfriCanadian communities, belongs to young people, and not like how we usually say it. He's really saying that the mindset that it requires to actually change to be a better and more moving community comes from how the young people are thinking and approaching problems today. Not so much dwelling on, what went wrong, but just recognize, okay, something's wrong. What do we do? And that's what you heard from the Rwandan youths here in Toronto. And so let me now go to their leader, our leader in the CARY Toronto, Mr. Imanzi Kaitare, joining me now. How are you?
Hey, Kazito, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Nice to have you here with us. So you saw what we've been able to hear from your team. What did you think of your members? Obviously part of the leadership of CARY as well as Toronto community of the Rwandan community. What do you think, knowing everybody that you just heard from?
No, I think what they talked about was great. It was inspiring, just to see how there was, three of them there representing, three different experiences, in how they got involved within the community, how they got involved within CARY. And so CARY has been around for a couple of years, and it's great to see that there's a new generation of young people who are also catching the vision of community development, servant leadership, because I think many of us are drawn to this, because of our love for our community, our country, our people, and there's that inherent, ability to want to connect and connect deeper. And so I think what they were speaking about resonates a lot, with a lot of young people, and definitely there is still a journey in which we want to engage more young people on this journey. So it was definitely great to hear.
Incredible. So, as somebody who have been in the leadership role within the community so how many years have you been leading the CARY Toronto, by the way, if I may ask?
So it started off, as a grassroots initiative, just meeting in, I believe, Ryerson, cafeteria, or the seventh floor of the Ryerson Ted Rogers Management Building, about since like 2013, so about like 7 years. And we've been slowly building it. None of us had any experience in grassroots community organizing. Now, where it's seeing the support, here within the region, but personally for me at that time, I just graduated from university, and I decided to come back to Toronto. Went to school in Montreal, and I said, you know what, hey, like, what can there be? How could we impact our communities here? Because I was seeing in many different African communities, Black communities, how many people were coming together with a common purpose, to really inspire and encourage, and just get to know one another. I think that's one thing, that we tried to do, and that we're still doing, is just how do we genuinely engage one another. What are people's names in the community, what are similar interests, and then from there, now how can we practically support, and that comes through mentorship and through leadership. So I've had the amazing, privilege of being a part, of it from the beginning, and now as I see a new generation of young leaders that are coming in, I'm super proud and excited just to see where things are going. And I think now we're at the stage, and I think now I'm at the stage of just sharing that knowledge, mentoring, and just equipping the next generation to take this on, because the region has been growing for quite a while. And for myself, I've been born and raised here in Toronto. My parents, they came from Rwanda, or lived in exile in Kenya, and they settled here in the late '80s. And there was a small community back then, and to see how the community is now, and we're spread out all over different regions in Canada, and we're getting involved and active and engaged in local civic initiatives, to business, to humanitarian, to academia, to all these different factors. I think that's been the most encouraging thing, and I guess that's what keeps me going, is seeing how far we've come and what more can we do, to really have an impact.
Yeah, you say you're inspired by listening to members of CARY as we visited them. They visited us anyway. One of the things that inspires me is having seen the work that you've done over the years. Because for me, I'm a newbie in the community, and I have seen the work that the Rwandan community has done. I've been here since 2003, I think, in Toronto. But many of you just saw me. Many of you just met me, and I've really been amazed by the work that you've put in. My question here is, Toronto being, and I mentioned this earlier, Toronto being the fourth biggest city in North America, difficult to get around, traffic, and of course the cost of living. Of course now we're dealing with COVID and everything. how, for the Rwandan community, what do you think, how do you think they have managed to stay together, to connect during all these difficulties, especially getting around the city of Toronto as big as it is?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think when initially, like when the pandemic hit, it was a shock to many of us, like all communities, in particular with the big communities. But I guess in the case of Toronto, and like you said, it's Toronto is a large metropolitan city, fourth largest in North America, and it can get kind of intimidating. At least that's what I've heard, right? It could get, if you're coming in as outsider, you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I belong? Especially if you're coming from like a small city, Ottawa, or and you're coming into here, and so, and also because the community itself lives in various different parts of the region. So it's not like you can go to one particular part of the region and say, hey, here is Little Rwanda, right? And I know in many African communities, Caribbean communities, they actually have, neighborhoods that are made up of that community, of that ethno group. We have pockets of it, but if there's like an overwhelming population in one particular area, we don't have. And so in terms of community building, mobilizing, just engaging, it comes a little tricky, but I think that's where engaging creatively, having to mobilize. And so right now we're using the use of technology in trying to get the word out, whether it's through, how can we apply to a COVID relief response that could be benefiting our community? How can we engage actively on social media to making sure that we are sharing information that could be important and that is pertinent for our community? And so I think, like in any community, I think there are ambassadors and there are people that who will be active and involved to really say, okay, well, we're not reaching everyone. How do we ensure that we are reaching everyone? And so that takes work. And so and being in Toronto, like it takes work because it's realizing, okay, well, how do we ensure we are connecting with the folks, one part of the city and the other part of the city. I think maybe the thing for us that has worked is that usually when we do organize community events or initiatives, we'll have it like an essential location, downtown, for example. But I would love to see how we could spread that downtown, or how we could equip, let's say, local leaders. And some of them, and many people are doing that, and they're meeting in their different respective neighborhoods. So it's realizing how could we equip already those people that are leading, right? Because some people, different variations of leadership, and so it's to be aware of that and to say, okay, how can we support? Like right now, there's practically within families. How can we support families? How can we support the flow of information? So, living in a big city such as Toronto, that's something that we just need to be creative about.
Yeah, one other thing you and I talk a lot about is also making the work that we do more attractive to young people. I feel like, well, not necessarily just young people, but people in our communities in general. I feel like a lot of what we do, because we are sacrificing most of our time working into the community. Most of our young people, most of our people do not look at this as an area of profession where they can actually step in and take leadership and actually make a living doing. Meaning, if you have an organization, one of the things that I always say, if you do the thing you're meant to do, you'll find a way to make a living through that. But I think for many of our young people, for many of our people, when we think of community service, we're only talking about the sacrifice side, which is required, by the way, because without sacrifice, you won't be able to get to the level that we need to get to, because there is a lot of sacrificing that needs to be done for many of our people, because we are either first generation or we don't have the wealth that was developed through previous generations like other communities. So definitely there is a lot of sacrificing that is required. But the other thing I really want to promote or at least push is how do we make this work that we do attractive to people of our community, so we can actually see it as a career, not just something you do just to help, but really actually taking the skills and the talent that you have to make it a part of the work that you do towards the future. How do you feel, or what do you think we need to do to make these, make it more attractive to everyone that really feels like they have a calling in the community? So it's not always just like, I want to volunteer. I can actually make these a life calling as well.
Yeah, great question. I think highlighting the importance and the need of it, and so that's something which which could get lost, and so emphasizing as to why are we doing this, what is the motivation, right, and actually break it down. I think maybe that could be one way as to how we could really engage people to make this an attractive endeavor, to really get involved in community, and let's face the reality is that with a community and getting involved in deepening and strengthening your networks, that is building social capital. And here in this part of the world, and definitely all regions, is that having a strong network for which you could rely upon, which you could support, which you could train and mentor and groom. That, like, these are all characteristics that we could help influence and shape who those next leaders are in these communities. And so I think for example, like we have a community that has some that have been here for a while, and we have a lot of elders, and like when they came to here, it was just survival mode, right? And so now as the community has progressed, it's now us taking a step back and saying, wow, okay, like these are the opportunities that can be afforded to us, and this is where we can help improve and changing the systems and really being a voice and really being visible. And so I think just a consistency, so in how we could be consistent in our programming, really identifying what the needs are, the vision, and starting young. And so start including programming at a younger age, and getting them more involved in the community, in their culture, in their identity, and realize, okay, what does it mean to be both Canadian and Rwandan at the same time? Is that we don't have to choose. At least personally, I believe that, like, like you don't have to choose. And so because you're in this part of the land, it makes you any less Rwandan, or if you're in that part of the land, makes you any less Canadian. It's leveraging that and realizing, okay, that that you could have a role to play here in this society, in this economy, in this community, and because the needs are great, we definitely need to be thinking about ways in which we could spark job creation, how we could encourage more entrepreneurship within our communities. And I definitely feel within the younger generation, and that the things that they're being exposed to, that there is an opportunity for that. And so how can we help foster that, and realize that, hey, like yes, definitely, if you're interested in going into a particular field, that's great, and hey, here's how being involved in the community can help leverage that, and help build that social capital that can help propel you to that next step, at the same time giving back, because no matter where you go, like this will always be a home for you. And I think that's something that we really want to emphasize, that this is your home away from home. Or if you're here for a long time, like, just know that you have a community there rallying behind you, supporting you like in any initiative. So I think that's something, the selling point, the value proposition is, that's something that we really need to identify and to highlight.
Absolutely. I heard Rita mentioning that earlier, how we need to be able to come to this country and make it. Don't just come here and settle for a second. Know that you're here to stay. Become don't just have the experience of living in Canada, because at the end of the day, we're going to have children who are going to have children here. So our legacy is going to be built here as much as it's going to be built back home. Whatever we choose to do, it's our choice. So I think you're right. I think being able to think and say, we are here and we are here to stay. And whether we choose to go back home or not, we should develop, we should think, we should act like we are here to stay, which means, where are our buildings? Where are our stores? We need to have these infrastructures, not just have a degree, for example. We need to build more wealth that is going to live on past our lifetime. And I know you have a business
Generational
as well.
wealth.
Maybe we're going to have that conversation another time with your Rwandapreneur. You and your wife are doing incredible work within the community. You're not just in the non-for-profit sector with the CARY Toronto, you're also building a business. So those are the things we need to encourage more of. And hopefully, who knows, any of these young people, including yourself, can run for office, whether it's locally or nationally, right? Am I hoping for too much?
Like one thing which I've learned is that like you never say never, but this is like, why not? Like, why shouldn't we have more representation from our communities at a local, at a regional, at a national level here, right? And really helping to shape and to drive policies that could be that our community could be in favor of. And so, for sure, whether that's in the political arena, whether that's in business, whether it's educational, whether it's profit, like, I think it's just looking at it holistically, saying, hey, whatever space that you're in, just go hard at, like, just be excellent in that. And that's when we really start, really creating, even though we could be a very small community, and like you said, we are still a relatively new community. I'm talking about the Rwandan community, Rwandan diaspora community here in Canada, right? So we don't have the privilege of being here for like decades upon decades, as when they had those first waves of immigration here in Canada in the 50s and 60s and all of that. And then you could kind of see the effects of that in that, they have established different infrastructures around the city. And so I think that's the dream that we could have for ourselves, and saying, hey, well, what do we want our future and for our children's future to look like, here, if you so happen, to be based here, how could we create a prosperous future for our children, and realizing that, like, there is a lot of work to do, and we're also not immune to the systemic racism that goes on, and usually when they see us outside, they see us as Black, right? And so already for them, like the bar is very low, and so and that's something I've always been hearing, like growing up, got to work 10 times harder, whatever, and I think maybe as I got to really understand that later on, and but I'm definitely appreciative of just how much I was shown as to who the community is, and how I could get involved and what my identity is, really played a role in that. So this is something that we should pass forward on to the next generation.
Amazing. Manzi, I'm going to ask you one last question, and it goes into obviously the future of the community and what CARY has in store for the community. What is your plan? What is the plan for CARY, especially on recovery from the COVID that we're going through right now? What is CARY doing to respond within the community, but also what is that plan for you as an organization to actually have these structures that we're talking about?
So CARY has sort of been operating at a very grassroots level for the last 7 years. And so now we have reached a point in terms of building that capacity where we are being intentional in how we want to strategically plan for these upcoming years. And so part of that entails actually being active and engaged in pursuing funding that is available, and funding that could be supporting different initiatives, whether that's being mentorship, cultural and engagement within the community. Right now there is the focus, of course, with COVID, and so we are definitely not in the stage of recovery yet with COVID, and it looks like the numbers are still increasing. So the need for us to respond to this crisis is still ongoing, and so we've been fortunate that we have been a part of some applications that have been successful in funding and in response to COVID, and so that's something over the next few months that we're going to be rolling out. So the team has been putting together a great rollout of possible activities that could be practically supporting our young people, and so that's something. And then in terms of looking ahead, really we have a talented pool of leaders, and so my role is just ensuring that this is going to be sustainable, ongoing, for this next year, over next few years, and really building that pipeline. And so I'm incredibly excited to see just the people that have stepped up to this and that are going to be leading the charge in that. And even as we speak in terms of the broader community here, the surrounding community here within the Toronto GTA, definitely excited to see new people stepping up and really wanting to make a difference. And that, this is a lot of work in getting involved in grassroots community building. But for me, honestly, it's been the most fulfilling. And I don't do this for any type of gratitude or anything like that, but I've been fulfilled in really seeing the community grow. Yes, it's going to be messy along the way, and it's almost like dealing with a family. Like, no family is perfect, right? And so even within our own media families, but and even within the community, like it's going to be messy. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be learning lessons. But I think the key is to how do we learn from these lessons, and how do we shape a future that could be prosperous, that could be a future in which we could actually be connecting deeper and actually be supporting one another, in many different ways. So this is something which I'm definitely looking forward to, which I'll always be, in support of, whether, getting involved in other initiatives on a business side or anything. But for me, any circle, any space that I'm going in, I am always proudly representing, where I come from, and letting people know, say, hey, if you don't know, we have an amazing London Canadian community here, and this is why you should get to know them, whether that's in the political sphere, business sphere, community sphere, all of us being ambassadors. So I think that's something which I really encourage a lot of people to do, and just, take this message, everywhere where you go.
Absolutely. And I second you by saying you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. I hope I'm not butchering that quote, but it's pretty much saying we all need to know our roots. We need to represent the communities that we're coming from, wherever we go, whatever we do. And with you, Manzi, you have been incredible from day one, and I hope you continue to have that courage and energy to do this work throughout, whether it's in your entrepreneurship journey, in your leadership journey, and of course at home with your family. So thank you so much, Manzi. I know you gotta go. You had other programs going on tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope to have you on again in the near future. We appreciate your presence. By the way, before you go, where can people find CARY on the online and those kind of platforms?
Yeah, so we are active on social media, so you can definitely find us on Instagram. So just look us up, CARY Toronto, on Twitter, on Facebook. You can definitely find us on all those platforms. And if you have questions, if you have advice, feel free to shoot us a DM. Someone on the team will reach out. We're definitely open to collaboration as well, and that's something that we want to collaborate across different African Caribbean communities, other communities that are friends of ours, and so realizing that all of us could have a role to play, and so we're also open to those types of partnerships as well.
Incredible. And that's what we are trying to do here, creating a platform for all AfriCanadians, just to be able to connect different communities. And having begun, obviously we begin at home with the Rwandan community with CARY Toronto. We thank you for joining us, Imanzi. We will see you in the near future. In the meantime, let's go to commercial.
A coronavirus is a type of virus that can infect the respiratory tract, meaning the nose, mouth, throat, sinuses, or lungs. There are many types of coronaviruses, and most cause only mild illness, such as the common cold. But some coronaviruses can cause severe illness. The most likely way people can become infected is by droplets that contain the virus. These droplets carry the virus into the air and can enter through the nose, mouth, throat, and lungs of a person who is within 6 feet or 2 meters. The virus infects the lungs, causing the lungs to become inflamed. The alveolar sacs have to be healthy for the body to breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Infection of the virus causes damage to the cells of the lungs and triggers an inflammatory reaction. Fever may develop. With severe inflammation, inflammatory fluid fills the lungs. This reduces the function of the alveoli, resulting in coughing and difficulty breathing. The oxygen level in the blood may decrease. In some people who become severely ill, other organs may be affected, such as the kidneys or the heart.
An incredible program tonight. Thank you so much for still tuning in. So as you have seen, this is the first of many communities that we're going to visit over the course of the next 3 months. And what we're trying to do is learn, as you just learned tonight, what's the community like, what's the strengths of the communities, but also what are the things that they're looking for to improve. As you learned from many of our guests tonight, there's so much good, there's so much resources, there is so much talent, there's so much in the qualities of the leaders that we have. And we're really looking for the future leadership of Canada. And of course, if they choose to go back home, that's also a door that is open for them. So this is what we want to do. Tomorrow we're visiting the Eritrean community. We're going to bring you that to you the same time, 6 o'clock in the p.m. And we're going to continue to do this as a part of the AfriCanadian Resource Center, the platform that is going to be designed to bring you African Canadian resources, research, studies, all these kinds of information that we need in order to operate within the community. So make sure to join us again tomorrow. Again, if also you want to follow us, there is 3 different platforms you can find us on. On the AfriCanadian side, it's on Instagram at afri.canadian. Also on RCHC, RCH Center, both on Twitter and Instagram, as well as Facebook. And of course, myself, you can find me on Kizito BM. Kizito BM, that is on Instagram, on Twitter, and I'm also on Facebook under Kizito Musabimana. Thank you so much for having joined us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow, the same time, same place. See ya.